Master Category section every week is when we get to talk about the tokens we drew the week before. And we got some exciting stuff to chat about. Luke, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. Okay, so I have toys and games, which is great because I love toys and games.
You love both of those things.
I love both of those things. So there's a game that I talked about seeing at Gen Con 2 years ago. It was kind of like it was really cool because they set up in different hotels around the convention, and they would set up at tables and just be playing. And so people would walk past and be like, what is this game? Because it gets really intense as it goes. And the game is Captain Sonar. Now, this is, like I said, 2 years ago. So the game has become increasingly popular. You can get it at Target now. I've seen it at Target. It's a little bit different of a cover redesign. I don't think there's any mechanic redesign, but I finally got a chance to play it because this is a up to 8-player game, and I wanted to play it with 8 players to get the full experience, and I finally had a chance to do that. This game is so good. It's really, really fun for a big player game. So what it is everybody takes turns. There's two sides, and you set up these. Forgive me, I'm trying to get out all of the components of this game. So you set up these like big walls to kind of separate.
Like screens.
Yeah, you separate yourself from the other team with these huge screens, and they're printed on to look like, sonar maps and like all kinds of like electronic indicators and all this stuff. The artwork for this game is great, by the way. So you have 2 submarine teams versus each other, and what you're trying to do is travel around these sets of islands. And it's essentially like a newer reimagining of what the game Battleship could be. So you're working to try and figure out where the other team is and take them down before they take you down. Every team has 4 health. Your sub has 4 hit points. It's just like a submarine in Battleship. If you take
would you
4
say
hits,
take them down to Chinatown?
I didn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
No, but would you say that?
No, nobody would ever say that.
Oh, okay.
So after 4 hits, you're sunk.
Literally, nobody would ever say that.
Nobody would ever say that. And the way it works and why I think the 8-player version is the best kind of play is because of the roles you have. So you have a captain, you have a radio technician, you have an engineer, and you have a first mate. And you each have different roles to play on the sub, and each function does different things to make your submarine work. So what the radio person does is listens to the other captain. So when the captain decides to go a direction, he says north, south, east, west. And as the radio operative, you are tracking that to try and figure out where the other ship is. So you have a map, and you play on these different maps depending on how complex you want to get. There's 2 sides, up to 9 areas, or 4 areas is a little easier. And you have this clear piece of plastic and these dry erase markers, and what you're doing is tracking where a ship might go. And so you're moving this around as they say where they are to kind of figure out, well, if they said they're going north and then they say they're going south, if they're here, they can't go south again. If they do, then we know, I'm not in the right space. They might be over here or something like that. And so it's really cool. The captain is giving directions and then is also in charge of firing the weapons. Yeah, firing the staff. So you can fire torpedoes, you can drop mines, you can use sonar. So the captain is in charge of that stuff. The first mate is keeping track of what weapon systems and technologies ready. So like drones, you can send out a drone and figure out like what area of the map, whether it's the enemy team has to say we're in 1 or we're in 2 or wherever, and then you kind of get an idea based on the map that your radio person has drawn where they might be. You can send out, you can drop a mine, and that'll that'll detonate within like a 9 dot radius. So if they're in that area, they'll take 1 damage. If it explodes directly on them, they take 2. Or a torpedo hit is 2 damage. And then the engineer, for every time you move, on his sheet, every place you move, north, south, east, west, you have to mark off one of these. And as you mark things off, different systems become unavailable. So if you use too many of a certain direction, then your torpedoes might not work. You have to resurface and repair before you can use different things. And so it sounds a little complex.
This sounds really complicated.
It sounds complex, but as you play it, it's actually really, really easy because all you're doing is one thing. That would be a ton if you're trying to do all of that, but you're only doing one of those 4 things. And the game is so fun because this cat and mouse game of like, okay, what do we have to do to find this? And then once you find them, you're like, okay, we know where they are. This is, we have to take them down. And the other team, you get the idea of, even though you're across the table, you hear like, oh, they know where we are. What do we have to do to kind of lose them? And there's like cloaking things that you can do to, if you're working towards that, you can kind of disappear and then resurface somewhere else, and you can reset your area. The other thing is it's like Snake. Until you resurface, you can't cross the area you've gone before. So you're kind of limited to where you can go until you resurface, and then you're able to go everywhere else. All of that to say, the artwork is good. The gameplay is, while it sounds complex, is really, really simple, and it's a super fun party game. So I think it's $50. You can find it at Target or Cool Stuff Inc. or Board Game Geek or Amazon or whatever. A really, really good 8-player game. It's probably okay with 6 players. At 6 players, the captain does the captain role and the radio controller role. And then the first mate and engineer still. Or no, I'm sorry. It's the captain and first mate are together. Then the engineer and the radio controller. You can go down to 4, and then each person takes 2 roles. But I feel like that would be just a little bit too complex. And not as fun as the full 8-player game. But the game is super, super fun. That's it. Play Captain Sonar. Play games with a lot of players. Because they're good.
Yeah, Patrick,
you're going to talk about something that is a lot. So I'm going to give it to Andrew.
Okay, well, I was actually going to think that we would end with mine since all 3 of us have something to contribute. But that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Hey, this is Patrick. It sounds like it's my turn to talk. Great. So this week, the thing that Luke has been very kindly complaining about for this episode.
I haven't been complaining.
No, I said kindly.
That doesn't negate it. Yeah. It doesn't negate. Nope.
We had our latest M of 1 meetup. So this is probably the 4th one that we've done, I think, something like that. It's our 2nd one we've done in Orlando, and it was at
this is like our 6th one. Yeah.
Okay.
We've done 2 in Orlando. We've done 2 in California. We did 1 in Georgia. So, and then I did another one in Florida. So yeah, so this is 6th.
Oh, so we've done a few. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, but we did this one in Orlando at just outside Epcot at the Cruise Cup Lounge. So, the International Art Festival has been going on at Disney.
Fast?
Oh, I've said it fast. Cruise Cup Lounge.
3 times fast.
The International Art Festival has been going on at Epcot. It was 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. I think it's just wrapping this past week, so it's just ended. But we had some artists we knew we were going to be over there, and so we wanted to take the opportunity to go and meet up with them and meet up with you guys. So we had about 25 people show up. People from the community that have been on the show that you would know. So Jetpacks was there from Toronto. Lenny Terenzi and Doc Reed were there from. They made the 9 and 12 hour, 9 and 11 hour drive down from North Carolina. Cameron, that's in the community, was
Cameron
there.
Crotch.
He made his 2.5-hour drive. I felt bad because he didn't leave till like 11 p.m. So, and then had to drive 2.5 hours home. Sorry,
It
buddy.
was a bit, yeah.
Great seeing you. Jared Mariyama was there. JC Richard, who does a lot of stuff with Cyclops and Mondo, was there. That was a surprise for us.
We had never met him before, and then we ended up spending quite a bit of time with him, yeah.
There was a great moment about 45 minutes into JC being there with you, Andrew. What happened between you and JC?
So we were chatting for quite a bit. In fact, I invited him earlier in the day when we ran into him at Wonderground Gallery, and Jared introduced us, and he said, "Hey, this is JC Richard." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I love your work. I've been following it for a while." And he's just super down to earth, super approachable. And I said, "Why don't you come tonight?" And he's like, "Well, I don't want to crash your party." You're like, "No, that's come. Like, it's open invitation. Come.
It's
gonna
for
be
everyone.
It's totally
this is
crashable.
what. Yeah, this is what it's for." And
Designed to
Jared said,
crash.
"You'd probably be like a celebrity there." That's what, but in the conversation, so this is later in the evening. We're now talking. He's come to this thing. We've been sitting and talking for a bit. And like, I'm talking just like this, and he stops, and he has this look on his face that just goes, "Oh, well, holy crap. I just realized who you guys are. I fall asleep listening to you guys all the time."
Well, that's good to
Well,
hear.
Specifically, he falls asleep listening to me, is what he says. And Patrick said, "Well, that's not a good thing." But he listens to the show apparently pretty regularly, but didn't realize that that's what this was. That's who we were
Hi, JC.
until
He's asleep.
much further into the conversation.
And so
but
we
it was pretty funny.
we ended up getting to go actually into the park. We got to hang out with JC a bit on Monday. So totally cool dude. Super glad we got to meet up. And it was a bit of a chance thing that we were both in town at the same time, but very rad.
There's a good chance he'll be on the show in the coming weeks and months.
Another one of those chance encounters was Ian
Globinger,
which it's technically pronounced like Glaubinger.
Glaubinger, yeah.
But we'll just
As you
Glaubinger
know.
sound. It's so much easier to say. Ian was there.
as you know.
Jay Ratner, Tim Anderson was there as well. So we've had Tim Anderson on the show before. Emphatically, we've had him on the show before.
If you're watching this on YouTube, this piece right here is him. This Roger Rabbit piece. Yeah.
And we got to go into Universal with Tim on Tuesday, and I had my first experience riding the ET ride at Universal, which is a rite of passage. That's what I took away from it.
It's a ride of passage.
It's a rite of passage, and actually my single favorite moment of Universal, although the park is super cool. So anyway, and then Adam Grayson was there. Gosh, there's so many people. I want to say like in others, but there's just so many incredible people. So I'll stop saying names. The point is, 25 people. We hung out for about 6 hours. We hung out until they closed the door on us, and then made our way back.
Quite literally, yeah.
Yeah, they were closing.
Like we left something, and by the time I turned around, everything was locked, and I had to bang on the door to get them to answer it.
But there's a couple moments specifically that really stood out to me, and that I want to relay because I want you to get excited as a listener for going to conferences, conventions, or going to meetups. Whether it's us or someone else, that's not the point. The point is making community. We had a guy, Matthew, who had just learned about the show on the Thursday before, about 5 days before, or 4 days before the meetup. He learned about M of 1. Now, he decided to come out. He actually drove an hour to come out to the event to hang out with a bunch of strangers.
That's awesome.
That are part of a discipline that he's working to build right now, and in a community he didn't know, but he took the time to come out. And there was a moment when I was sitting at a table and I looked over, and Lenny Terenzi had out his iPad. And Matthew is there, and Lenny's like basically giving him lessons of how to do stuff in Procreate on the iPad right there in the moment. And to me, that is such a cool thing. The fact that you can sit down and you can start in an environment like that, start learning from someone immediately. Not to mention just the social aspect. I mean, we had a lot of fun, a lot of great conversation, but the fact that learning can take place right there. It was also really cool because Matthew expressed that that he actually came to learn about us by way of Hayden Obey. Well, what Matthew didn't know is that Hayden is also in our Slack community. So he's joined, and now he can interact with Hayden through the Slack community. Again, it's another opportunity to more directly interact with people, learn from people, those type of things. The other thing that was very cool, which is kind of two other pieces. One is just getting to have conversations with people and not feeling like you're crazy. Like you're getting to just have conversations about this is what I'm dealing with in my daily life. This is what I'm going through. And you have a group of people that can echo that because they have a similar thing. So just to be able to kind of frame everything as, hey, all these things that I'm going through are normal. Other people deal with them and I can talk with other people about them. That was incredibly helpful for the event. And then the other thing that happened, which was just very cool, which I'm not saying that this will happen at every event you go to because it would require Doc Reed being there. He's not going to be at every event you go to. He'll be at a lot of them. But sometimes you walk away with cool stuff, and that was definitely the case for me. So Doc was nice enough to bring a tube full of prints he's made, and he basically just opened it up to everybody and said, just take what you want. So, Beta Radio, which, if y'all remember, one of the two members of Beta Radio was actually at Creative South this year. We ended up playing board games with him until, for several hours one of the nights. He's also in the Slack community, but super cool print. And then the other one, this is the one that's just like stupid good. So it's a Switchfoot and Berlin poster, but look at this.
I know, I love it.
That's a fingerprint.
It's a fingerprint, but maybe squint your eyes because there's something else in there.
A lion face.
There's a lion face in there. So these come by way of Doc Reed, also known as I Am Redicus.
He's great,
and
man.
that was super cool as well. And then the final awesome thing that happened that I would be, is it amiss? Remiss?
Remiss.
What's the word?
Remiss.
Remiss?
You'd
Remisted?
be in mist.
Yeah. Mark Bowden, Mr. Oh my gosh, jumped on a plane from Bermuda and surprised us in Orlando. And how crazy. Just how nuts is that to kind of put out a call for people to show up and hang out and have someone fly from Bermuda to come hang out. It was
pretty
awesome.
nuts, man.
Yeah. It's there's a part it is this is my insecurity. There's a part of me that it's really tough when people do that because I feel responsible and I feel like what if they hate it or what if they regret it or like what if a bunch of people come to a meetup and then they're bored out of their mind and then they leave and or something like that. Like it's a really tough thing. Like there's many times when these events happen that I don't want to go to them because I'm afraid that I'll like wreck the vibe or something. That like I will negatively impact them. I'm usually
afraid that
so it makes me almost want to kind of avoid some of these things. But that being said, like so that's my part of it that wants to stay away from. I know for other people it's just socially uncomfortable or it's it's a lot of new faces or whatever. Whatever the barrier is, just get past it and go. Go to a meetup, go to an event, go to a local Adobe group, or go to a conference or whatever. Meeting people that have the same interests as you, that like what you do, it is going to absolutely benefit the work you do from the education standpoint. It's going to benefit you from the relationships you have. It's going to benefit the amount and quality of work. It will absolutely be a positive benefit just by being willing to go out and meet with people. So anyway, Meetup was a great success. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add about the Meetup?
No, I said it earlier, but man, without saying names of people, because I don't want them to get bombarded with requests, our community, we put out that we were going to be there and we never wanted for anything once we got there. They took care of us. We were able to do a lot of really fun and really cool things. And just a huge thank you. You're listening to this, you know who you are. Thank you for making this trip super fun and yeah, it was just great.
Wait,
So
I have a follow. Go ahead. I have a follow.
well, I was just gonna say we Instagram storied the whole thing, and so if you want to go back and track some of that stuff down, you can. But it was a blast.
How was the butterbeer?
Butterbeer was awesome.
Yeah, but butterbeer is everything you think and hope it's going to be.
Yep.
I've never had it before. This was my first time,
Right.
but I tried the frozen version and the cold version. Both were great. There's apparently an ice cream version and like a warm version sometimes. Is that what I heard?
In the fall, there's a warm version. There's an ice cream version, and there's a fudge that they have in. Yeah. So Diagon Alley is incredible.
Yeah.
Holy crap! Like.
Yeah,
it's
so
it's so
you've
cool.
been before, Andrew, right? Or had you never been?
Not
before?
Diagon Alley. So I had been to Hogsmeade. The one in Orlando was Hogsmeade first, and then the one in California is Hogsmeade. But Diagon Alley is a totally separate.
Right.
It's in the other park.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had never been to Universal at all, and I'm pretty new to Disney. I mean, I'd never been to Disney either until last year, and now, thankfully, I've been able to go. A few times.
A number of times, yeah.
But Universal, I was trying to make a lot of comparisons when I was there. It's just different. I actually like a lot of the theming around Universal more. But most of the stuff is a more like realistic feel. It's like less fantastical, and it's more like it feels a bit more real in some ways. I'm sure there's better ways to describe that, but the theming and stuff, and yeah, when you walk into Diagon Alley, it's overwhelming in a great way. I mean, it's completely incredible.
Hidden. Have you been to Diagon Alley, Luke?
Yeah, I've been to both. Yep.
Okay, so it's completely hidden. You don't see it unless you know to go down this little like bathroom entrance area, and then there's this whole world. Did you go to Nocturne Alley? So Nocturne Alley is hidden even inside of Diagon Alley. There's a whole nother, there's a dark area where it's literally, it feels like it's nighttime. Everything
no, I didn't do that.
Okay, I stumbled across it on accident. And they have, the shops, where there's, all these skeletons, and you can interact with the skeletons if you have the wand.
Really?
And, these singing, shrunken heads.
Yeah.
And it's all the creepy shops are in Nocturne Alley. And that's hidden even deeper. So it was just, if you're a Harry Potter fan, it is an absolute must. We rode the Hogwarts Express between the two, and that is so much fun.
It was really fun.
Generally speaking, I don't think the actual rides themselves, at least, and obviously I'm a huge guy. I didn't get to do the more thrill rides.
The Flight of the Hippogriff.
But thinking of for instance,
Race
Kong.
to New York.
Oh, Race to New York, Kong, or the rides to me weren't. They lean a lot more on projection. They lean a lot more on some of the other stuff than Disney does. And they weren't quite as good to me, but all the environments are amazing. And I'm sure if I did the thrill rides, then those would be incredible. But most of the stuff I did was they leaned very heavy on projection. It's just not quite to the point that it was immersive enough that I had a whoa moment,
It's not quite as accessible for larger fellas.
Sure.
That's true. Universal's got to get their money. I did learn an interesting thing, which is that they have to consistently make that 2% of everything that they make goes straight to Spielberg.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, in perpetuity. Not just him, but him and his family in perpetuity.
That's amazing.
Because his descendants, 2% off the top.
When they opened off the top, that's gate, that's beverages, food, that's all the merchandise. Because when they opened the park, they didn't have 50 years worth of IP like Disney did.
Right.
And so they had to make, that's why all the original rides were Steven Spielberg things, But yeah, that's his deal. His deal
amazing.
is 2%.
That's my favorite thing I learned the whole week is that.
Way to go,
It's nuts.
That's
that's how you
Steve.
do something. All right, so you're going to hand it off to me?
Yeah, do it.
All right, so let's close this thing out. I had TV and film, and of course this week the big movie release was Black Panther, Marvel Studios' Black Panther.
Yeah.
We've all seen it now. and I'm still trying to articulate. We had a good conversation, me and a couple of the guys that I went and saw it with. Still trying to articulate my feelings on it, but what are your well, let me give a quick overview. So if you're not familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is the chapter of the story in between Avengers, well, I guess Captain America: Civil War, and which, why was that not an Avengers movie?
I know.
Captain America: Civil War and the Infinity Wars. Yep. So this movie falls right in between those, and it's not an origin story. It's just kind of a sidestep story of the Black Panther, and he is the king of Wakanda. That's it. Wakanda, which is a in Africa, and it's this hidden community that on the outside looks like a third world country. Internally, it is this highly evolved technological kind of mega hub, based on the fact that they have all the there's a whole mountain full of vibranium, which is like the strongest material known to man. It's what Captain America's shield is made out of. If you're in the Marvel universe, you know what vibranium is. Their whole community lives on a mountain of this, and they mine it, and it's whatever. So they have lots of really, really advanced technology. But it takes place in this place, and the biggest struggle of the movie, the biggest kind of apex of this film is circled around this idea of, if we have all of this technology, we have all this advanced resourcing, should we be kind of hiding it under a bushel basket? Should we continue to stay hidden from the world, or should we use it to better the world in some greater scale? That's kind of the main focus of this film. And then there's some ins and outs which we won't get into because we're not going to do a full reveal. This will be spoiler free as far as that's concerned, because it's still really new. But going into this film, I thought there was a lot of hype about it being, first of all, really, really well done. But second of all, this like political undertones and people being, some people being excited for it being like an all black cast, and it being this kind of telling of a black superhero and all these different things. And then some people being concerned about that. And there was a lot of conversation in kind of leading up to this film. What did you guys take away from it? Like, what did you guys think about it?
Go ahead, Patrick.
I haven't seen the film.
Oh, what?
I had planned to, and then I ended up working for a client through the start time of the film and didn't get to go see it. This is some of that conversation I was having with you earlier, Luke, before this episode.
Right.
So I'm actually seeing it tomorrow at 12:30 in IMAX.
All right, so I'll pick it up. Enjoy it. Okay, so
thanks.
Here's the thing. The movie's good. It's a good movie. The visual effects blew me away. There are things in this movie that I saw that I went, I want to figure out how to do that. Like,
would you say it blew everyone away?
No, I wouldn't say that. Nobody would ever say that.
You tend to speak for a lot of people.
Do you
all the
get
time.
what happened? Do you understand what happened?
I actually understand it on 2 levels, and you don't. Continue.
It's really good. I don't know. So there's a thread. We'll go back to Slack because we've been pushing Slack this whole episode, it seems like, and there's reasons for that. We have a channel in Slack called Spoiled Milk, where you can just talk spoilers about whatever. And
put it in a thread, people.
Yeah, it's in a thread. It's Black Panther spoilers, and I got into a really good conversation with Sean Kreider about the movie, and kind of without getting into any kind of spoiler stuff, I feel like Disney/Marvel did Black Panther a disservice by having Infinity War trailers and stuff like that out before the movie came out. because there are things that happen in this movie that I think you lose some of the tension of because you know what might be coming in the future. Um, so
I
that's
think I know exactly what you're talking about.
I
Yeah.
would hope you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, that's the one problem I had with it. As far as story and pacing, I felt like it was a little bit more engaging and fun at the beginning and kind of dropped off at the end. Um, and then, I mean, there's other stuff, but I don't think it's like, I don't know if it's like we talk about it after we're going to do spoilers or if it's better saved for Slack or something. There's some thoughts I have that I don't really know how to articulate yet, but they have to do with kind of the parallels that we see in real life to what kind of this movie talked about.
You sound a little let down by the movie.
I said this to Sean. I'm always harder on things that are way high on the hype train because for me, I don't know. I feel like if everybody is saying this is so good, it better be really good. And it is. It's a good movie. It fits well in the MCU. The villain in this movie I cared more about than any other villain. I understood their motives. More.
That's a really good way of articulating it. Yep.
Yeah, I understood his motives more than the last character, the last villain for me that did that was Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming. But my problem with the whole Vulture thing is that it was this huge surprise to the family. It was like, how would you not know that that's where his money's coming from? So anyway, that's Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
I really felt for Michael B. Jordan's character in this, and kind of what he was going through and things like that.
You could empathize with him.
Yeah, absolutely, you can
For
empathize
sure,
with
yeah.
him. But I felt like there were things that happened that were kind of like predictable. Some stuff was cheesy. Again, some stuff I think the tension was killed by hints at Infinity Wars or other stuff in the MCU. But overall, it's a great movie. It's a good Marvel movie. I don't know if it even hit the top 5 for me, but it's really good.
So, one of the things that I was looking for because of all of the conversation beforehand was for it to be a lot more, I don't want to say politically charged because that's not my motivation. And I don't like, it's not like I was clamoring for something like that, but I thought that it was going to make more of a statement than it actually did. I actually tend to agree with the underlying story arc of it and where they land things. I agree with it. So maybe that's why I didn't feel like it was, so in your face. But I felt like there was a component to it where it was, well, ultimately, and I'm explaining this to myself as I'm explaining it to the guys that I'm talking, that I'm kind of debriefing the film with. Ultimately, Disney and Marvel own this movie, and their allegiance is certainly there's going to be a bias to it, but their allegiance is to getting the largest fan base and the largest return on this that they can, and so you have to make it. You have to remove some of the what are you talking about? Like some of the I don't know, the really pointy parts. I don't. You have to soften it a little bit, so it's
Sure.
going to be a little bit more middle of the road than a movie that's not being put on by a big train like Disney or Marvel
Sure.
would have to. That being said, there was some discussion in our group about some of the polarizing statements. For instance, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but they call them at one point. The white people are referred to as colonizers. And so the guys that I was with felt like that was inappropriate, I guess maybe is a good way of saying it. There's a point where Michael B. Jordan refers to himself as, or saying that his people referring back to slavery and the idea that he actually never doesn't align from any of, he doesn't come from any of that lineage or whatever. And they had some issues with that, kind of the oversimplification or the overgeneralization of things. I didn't have issues with any of that stuff. So I've been able to kind of see through that and see the perspective from both sides of the characters. I liked it as a movie. It was entertaining. It was fun. It was good. The visually, I think the thing that wins the day for me far and away is the visual component to it. It's beautiful. Sure.
So it's worth seeing.
Absolutely.
It's 100% worth seeing. I'd say it's probably, as a standalone film, it probably takes about an 8 for me. I thought that it was.
Luke,
I thought that
for
it was
you,
really
similar?
good.
7.
So do you think it lives up to the hype train, though?
No.
No,
I would say that it does not live up to the hype train.
Wonder Woman was the same way for me. There's a ton of hype around the film, and I'm not saying it's a bad film at all. I don't think it. I think it was a time and place had a lot to do with it, but I just don't think it's as good of a film as the reviews and critics would suggest. So
yeah, and I understand that with both, and I actually use Wonder Woman as my example as I was dialoguing about this. Both of these are intended to have, or at least the understanding was, they're intended to have kind of a subtext to it, right? This one is with Wonder Woman, it's the empowerment of women, and it's kind of glorifying the empowerment of women and showing that component to it. And then this one is the same thing, but with African American, with the Black community, and neither one of them, but I think Wonder Woman maybe a little bit more, but neither one of them really took a stand in that regard, and I think that's okay. I just think I was expecting for it to be a little bit more in your face than it ultimately was. But great movie. Go see it. Go see it in theaters. It's definitely worth seeing in theaters, and it got me super hyped up for Infinity War. I can't wait for Infinity War. I think it's really
good.
Really good. So
I would say, so I have one thing to say about what you said about the tones of this. I don't necessarily agree, but I don't think we should talk about it here. I think we can just take it to Slack and talk about it in Slack. So if you want to be part of this conversation, hop in Slack and talk to us about Slack. Talk to us about it in Slack. What did you think about Black Panther? Because it does have a lot of things. The one thing I've noticed from talking to people that have seen it in the last 3 days is it makes conversations start. So, that's something.
Yeah.
And that was what I told the guy. We had a 20-minute conversation on the way home from the theater, and I'm like, listen, we just dialogued. And I said, if we're the only people talking about this, which I would be super surprised, if we're the only people talking about this, then they win for extending the conversation, for bringing it up. And so I think it's great. So,
right.
All right. I think that's it for this episode. You can find all of the show notes and links below us if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, go to M of One Podcast. You can also find an archive and a whole bunch of other great stuff on there as well. We have a great guest this week, so make sure you tune back in on Thursday for our guest from Keymaster Games, talking about their new project. And we're all over social media. Just search M of One Podcast on all the different platforms. Subscribe and like and share and comment and review on all of our different incredibly diverse platforms. You're on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and Spotify and YouTube and shortly iHeartRadio. Man, we're all over the place. So like and subscribe, rate and review. It helps us out a ton. If you want us to support the show financially, go to patreon.com/M1podcast. Go throw a couple dollars in the bucket. It helps us out so much. And we are able to continue doing this. We have 2 events coming up. We have Crop in Baton Rouge, and then right on the heels of that, we have Creative South, where we have a workshop going on. So go right now to cropbr.com or creativesouth.com and register for those conferences. And if you're going to be at Creative South, come to our workshop. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some cool stuff planned for that. Otherwise, man, is there anything I'm missing? I feel like I've said 1,000 things. Let's just close this one down for this week. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.